Greetings, guys. It's been a minute, and I just wanted to step in and do a bit of a long form this week just to show you all that I'm still posting and, got to get those subs up. Uh, Apparently, a lot of reform talk this week has been about women in the church, and it's kind of interesting because I've recently moved, and one of the churches that I'm looking at, the head pastor got kicked out because he denied women to be able to do Bible studies. And so you see this even in Reformed churches where women are kind of pushing the envelope on what roles that they can play in the church. And the interesting thing is that we have decades of examples, I guess you could say, of churches who go through this progression. And this is the PCUSA, this is non-denominational churches. Even some conservative denominations are seeing this in the local congregations. And so I just wanted to do a long form today and show you what initially happens. So let's dive into it. So stage one, I don't know if y'all can see that. The first thing we see is that women want to teach children's ministry, it's good stuff, and or youth. This is where women tend to get their feet wet into teaching, and it does kind of be a little contagious, especially if you're an education major, which is predominantly filled by women. If you go to public education, 95% of teachers are women. It's just the way it is, and so they kind of already have their foot in with the teaching children aspect. But the youth, that's where it gets to be a bit of an issue. Whenever boys get to be men at age 12, biblically, if you want to call it that, you have women exercising spiritual authority over a man. Granted, he's a young man, but you still have people breaking down the barrier of what the Bible calls for the woman to have that role, or rather to not have that role. Secondly, you have women's Bible studies. These are women specific, they're led by women, they're attended by women. I've seen a lot of pastors in the Reformed community, actually male pastors, lead these, which is good. He's a teaching elder. He should have the authority to teach women and any other demographic specifically. Now, what's very interesting is I've had one professor who believes that a teaching elder, his main priority is teaching children. His job ought to be instilling and catechizing the next generation of believers, even at a young age. And I fully support that. It helps for the longevity of a church. Now, further in stage one, you have this little thing, deaconesses. There's some biblical examples of women who are able to fill that role, but the deaconate, as we have historically seen, is best done by men. Women, you have a different role. Sorry, not sorry, but that's just the way it is. The deaconesses, it's kind of this new thing where you try to give women authority, you try to give women title. I've worked in nonprofits for quite some time, and a good way to make people happy is to give them meaningless titles like, hey, you're the volunteer coordinator, you're the whatever. You can make up any title, especially if you're not paying them, and it gives them authority, it gives them a sense of well-being. I'm doing great. Oh, I'm the head of this serving committee, this hospitality industry, whatever. People love titles. But when it comes to church authority, this is kind of a bit of an issue. Now, moving on to stage two, this is where it gets really hairy, and it's super cringe, like super cringe. One of the worst things that I've ever seen is a pastor inviting his wife to share the pulpit with him and aid in a Mother's Day sermon. Super awful. It's, hey, let's share this time, or what's worse is, hey, let's let my wife teach about Mother's Day. Now, not everyone is into expository preaching, so whenever you get to these made-up holidays that aren't biblical, they're made up for whatever reason, cultural context, you end up splitting the authority of the pulpit with someone who should not be there, and it's just so that you can be seeker-friendly, I guess. Hey, the world is doing this recognition of mothers. Why don't we have someone with a XX chromosome in there to talk about the Bible? because you're having mothers come for Mother's Day. It's like the third most attended Sunday of the year behind Easter and Christmas. Let's just have a woman up there, make all the mothers feel real good. Make all the other women feel really good. Oh, we're so inclusive. We're doing something unique. Nah, let's not do that. Now, the next thing you have is perhaps a gifted teacher who is doing Bible study for you. Come over here and, you know what, we're going to fill in for the pulpit when the pastor's on sabbatical. Maybe the church doesn't have any men that are gifted preachers, gifted teachers, anything like that. But you know what? That Susie, she did a really good job teaching Joyce Meyer's recent curriculum, or whatever the heck you get at Lifeway. And inevitably, what happens next is administering the sacraments. I've been to a PCA church where you have women giving the bread and the blood and the wine, if you will. And you're like, how can this happen? And you know what? The funny thing with the Presbyterian context is if no one files a complaint, then it's acceptable, 1,000%. So even if you're in a conservative denomination, a good Orthodox Reformed denomination, if no one files a complaint, then it's permissible. So if you ever see anything stupid like that, or like that, or like that, or maybe even like some of these, file a complaint. Okay, let the Presbytery deal with it. If you're Reformed Baptist, you need to take it to your elders, and if they're allowing this, maybe it's time to get to a new church. Let's move on to stage 3. This is where it gets even worse. You have a woman fully rotated into the pulpit. Hey, once a month we're going to have Pastor Stephanie, whatever, I don't know, preach on something that's really on her heart, whatever. Eventually you have someone as, she's recognized as the pastor to females, or even senior pastor. And you see this in the PCUSA, where you had, we can allow women to be in the pastorate. Boom, there it is. And this is where we get to the next slide. She has the authority to influence theology. It's pretty obvious whenever women have the authority to be in the pulpit and are called pastors, the next thing that happens is they're able to influence theology. And of course, that gets us to the final stage. Are you ready for this? Yeah, I flipped it on you. Now we're going to stage 4. Stage 4, you adopt same-sex marriage. It happens every time. It's kind of funny because, 20 years ago, you had people saying, if you start allowing same-sex marriage at a federal level, next thing you're going to have is pedophilia and drag and all this stuff. And you're like, no, that's a slippery slope fallacy. No. Well, this is the slope right here. It's stage, and then it always ends up with this. Because if you don't have the theological moorings to stop female pastors, then this is completely acceptable. Actually, it's right, because this is what the world's saying. You don't want to be discriminating against people because, discrimination's bad. But eventually, what ends up happening is the church evolves into a synagogue of Satan. It's just the way it is. You start having questions of biblical inerrancy. Does the Bible really say X? And the funny thing is, that's already happened back at stage 3. Does the Bible really say that a woman can't be a pastor? Further, does the Bible really say that a woman shouldn't be able to administer the sacraments? Sorry for my camera work. But every step of the way, you have, does the Bible really say? And once you get to stage 4, you have this, it doesn't really matter anymore, because now we are a law unto ourselves. We can say and do whatever we want as long as we hold on to the biblical principle of loving everyone. And of course, when you get to that point, you have no theological moorings. You have no reason to believe the Bible, because the Bible is secondary to your own authority. And so, I know this is kind of a long video. I just wanted to get it out there. Maybe join the conversation so that people can see we've observed this. This whole process may take a church 15, 20 years, but it happens every time. So the best way to start, just don't let them teach. Even the children. Really, a pastor should be doing that. And I think the biggest problem is that a lot of pastors, they spend way too much time sitting in their office working on their sermons because they're doing academic work, which no one cares. No offense. Let's be honest. If you're spending 20 hours a week working on a sermon, you are not properly stewarding your flock. So get in there, start teaching people. Maybe that'll jumpstart your ability to do a sermon and craft it in less than 8 hours. Just a thought. And yeah, good to see you guys. Bye.